What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. We're back. We're breaking down tonight's slate. And listen, we had a hockey show yesterday because there was a big 888. Well, we're back here talking NBA. And there's another big 888 tonight, but it's in the NBA street. Someone's going to take home $250,000. Could be Big T, could be DC, could be me, could be AP, could be K Fallick. Who knows? Could be one of you guys. But it should be a lot of fun. I got one in there, so I'm excited about that. And regardless, we got a fun DFS slate to break down with injury news that should be interesting with the Lakers. We got some chalk that I'm not a fan of today, so we'll discuss it all here and break it all down. DC, I will go over to you first. How are things going for you? Are you excited to break down some NBA before we got a big NFL slates coming up this weekend?
Yeah, fun NBA slate today. Like you said, 9 games. Big 888 tournament on DraftKings. I got an entry in there as well, just single bullet. So we'll try to get to the winner's circle there if we can. And Mangone, I see you invested some of your big NFL showdown winnings. Looks like you moved I don't know, what is that? Italy or something? I don't know where that's supposed to be, but it looks good, man. Nice and colorful.
I'm in the streets. I'm in the streets of Brazil right now. And I plan on traveling the world over the next couple weeks, right? I'm going to be in Florida soon, so I figured I'll add some fun backgrounds. It should be a good time. So whenever we do, I know AP knows, whenever we do our meetings on the Google Meet, I always have the streets of Brazil. So I had the idea, let me throw the streets of Brazil in the background for some good mojo here tonight. AP, I'll go over to you. I know the Chiefs Hater Show is live right now. They're talking NFL. They're probably wrapping up. So here's your chance to, fire back at the Chief haters and let them know the Chiefs are beating the Patriots this week.
Look, man, like I can't talk. Like I can't, what can we say? Like you can't, it's like wait and see thing. I mean, yeah, you could pull the card of, he's got 2 Super Bowls and, you could go that route, but they're 98, 99% to make the playoffs. We'll see what happens. It's, they got to get in and then they got to, if they get it going, they have a good defense and they have Patrick Mahomes. So I'm still a believer. And, enough said. Here's one thing that I'm pumped about. 888 tonight, $250K up top. Normally, when they run this contest, it's like a 15-game slate on Wednesdays. We don't have that tonight. We have 9 games? It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I'm pumped for the slate tonight. A lot of matchups that I like, some back-to-back spots that are going to be really interesting. And, excited to break it down with you guys.
Yep, I am excited to break it down. I'm excited for K Fallick and Big T to hop in the chat and see my background too. I see the chat's loving the background or having a good time with that. So, but 9 games, and listen, when we have 13 or 15, we go overboard. Let's just kind of dive right in because I think there's a lot to discuss on this slate. There's news that might hit. I could see us doing this entire show, and then we get off the show, and we got Lakers news that these guys are out, and it just changes the whole slate, right? So keep in mind, we're going to say some stuff on this show, but it can change. That's going to be a big thing that happens here. DC, let me go to you first. What's your kind of slate overview? I kind of gave mine there. I think tons of stuff could change. I think there's some early chalk that I don't like. I think I'm going to get back to my roots and kind of backload a little bit tonight. But what's your overall thoughts before we dive in?
Yeah, I agree entirely with your kind of overall assessment that so much depends on that Lakers news. It kind of seems like the consensus – in the DFS world or industry, whatever you want to call it, is that one or maybe both of LeBron and Anthony Davis could sit this game. Now they're listed questionable. I don't think either of them is actually dealing with any, significant injury or anything like that. And these guys have ended up playing pretty much every game this year. Has LeBron missed one yet? Maybe one. Anthony Davis, maybe 1 or 2. They've been pretty consistently in the lineup. The line in that game, the Lakers favored by just 3.5 against the Spurs, who, by the way, have they lost? I think they're just behind Detroit. I think they've lost 17 or 18 in a row themselves. So favored by just 3.5, it does kind of indicate that maybe 1 or 2 of them could sit. If those guys are both out, it changes the whole slate, right? Because at that point, it's how many Lakers are too many Lakers? And I think you're talking 3, 4, 5 Lakers, right? Because everyone else is going to have to do so much. So that is absolutely huge news on this slate. And to me, it's important enough that if Lock hits and we don't have that news, I'm going to be building as if they're out and then adjust from there, right? Because we do have enough games that lock at that time or after that game where you would be able to adjust and make good teams anyway. So that's kind of my initial approach to the slate. We'll see if we get clarification on the Lakers prior to the early games locking. But if not, I'm going to be building like those guys are out, and then I'll adjust if that happens not to be the case. So I think that's the proper approach. But, yeah, we should see some low ownership maybe on the early games, especially if we don't have that early news.
Yeah, that's possible. AP, will you be jumping out in front with Big T and playing a bunch of guys early? Or what's your kind of approach? You kind of went into it and you said it's only a 9-gamer, so it's definitely a little bit nicer. What's your kind of overall take on how you're handling it?
Yeah, I do think it's a good wait for the news type of slate. I put a bet in on the Spurs first thing this morning, and because LeBron James and Anthony Davis were both doubtful when we woke up, and a lot of it was due to the coach comments. I still think Anthony Davis sits, and that's going to be key. Obviously, we'll talk about that game, but that's going to be key for the Spurs, for Wemby, because Anthony Davis is kind of the X factor in my opinion. But yeah, yesterday I put in 2 bets early and the news did not go my way, but it didn't matter because Luka Doncic is the man and he got it done for me. I had the Mavs side, and I know we were battling back and forth in Discord. People were on the Lakers. My guy Bogards was like, easiest bet ever. Maybe he didn't say easiest bet, but he said the line was terrible. I think 2 other members, but Mavs got it done. We got the win, and then the Suns got it done too. So the news that I thought the big 3 for the Suns were all going to play yesterday. I thought it was a lock that KD, Booker, and Beal would play, and so I was like, oh, this is going to be easy money. The Warriors absolutely suck, and that wasn't the case. But they're all playing tonight, so that game is going to be interesting because we have Mikal Bridges, little hashtag revenge narrative. So Mikal did get he was sad, really sad having to leave that team. So I'm excited to watch that game. I do think it's a good slate. Wait for the news. Just a lot of pieces like LeBron, AD, obviously, Desmond Bane, questionable as well. And so, yeah, I literally think that it's going to be a slate where not all of these guys are going to play. I think it's, and if LeBron also sits and AD sits, man, that's going to be, because the Spurs aren't going to blow them away. They're not going to blow them out or anything like that. So I think prioritizing the news is going to be important today.
Yep, agreed. And I love those slates. So I'm excited to break it all down. Caleb is here. He says, no worries, fellas. I made it. Happy to have you here, Caleb. Hit the like if you could. Subscribe to the channel as well. Check out all the content. And listen, one reason to subscribe to the channel and get notifications is because we got Saturday football coming up. And, you want to get notified when we go live on this channel. We'll have tons of NFL content for you guys, and it's going to get wild here. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can get notified when we do go live. Let's go to this first game up. Pelicans and Wizards. So first off, I am not excited about the Wizards in this spot. Kuzma, I only play if I play him, I kind of want that run back option. I think he's a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. But let's talk about this Pelicans team because I think they are gaining ownership right now, very early on this slate. I do not agree with the ownership that we are seeing on them. I just want to be more under on these guys in general. If I play someone up top, I believe it would be either an Ingram or a McCollum. I've talked about it all year. Zion is just someone I'm not playing. Now, he had his first actual game where you're 48.7, I maybe want. I guess he had that 57. But other than that, it's been just garbage. And I know the matchup's good. I totally get it. But I'm not playing Zion. Valanciunas, I can understand playing because it's a good matchup for him. I just don't know if I want to use my center spot in that way. I personally think the ownership we're seeing on these guys, I want to stay far away from. The only guy I really think is interesting is Herb Jones at 5'5". It's just a really ideal matchup for someone like him, right? The stock upside is really good. It just, this up and down kind of style fits him super well. So for me, it's really only Herb Jones and maybe considering a CJ or an Ingram as a spend up. But I think we got great spend ups later on that we can get to. So I'm kind of out on this game, DC. How about you?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the Zion news for the most part. Questionable to play. I think he's going to be in there. Had a good game last time out. Didn't get hurt in that game and then kind of popped up with the, ankle injury today on the injury report. So, yeah, I guess I think he'll be in, but regardless, right, we should have that news at least half an hour before. the start of the slate, most likely. Obviously, some things can pop up late occasionally. If he's in, I think your take is pretty safe, Mangone. I don't think you need to lock in anything in this game. I still do think Zion himself, Jonas Valanciunas, and just a smash spot against this horrible Washington interior defense. I mean, the worst defensive team in the league by the numbers. Like all these guys would remain in play. McCollum, Ingram, Zion, Jovel. If Zion sits, though, now you got some really awesome plays from Pelicans and Herb Jones too, right? Like really a lot of this team would become good plays at that point. CJ McCollum, I think, would be a really, really strong play if Zion sits. I'd rank him 1, Ingram 2, Jovel 3, Herb Jones 4. But yeah, I would be interested in all 4 of these guys. And if Zion sits, I think I'd play in at least one Pelicans player in my lineup. Who that would be kind of just depends on how the news breaks otherwise, position-wise. But I think all 4 of those guys become excellent plays at that point. I think it's really close between them and a little bit hard to discern who you want to go to because you can – the problem with the Wizards, they're a great team to attack, but you can just beat them in like any manner you choose almost. So it's kind of hard to narrow down positionally where you want to go. But, yeah, Pelicans are definitely a team to watch. On the Wizards side – it's Kyle Kuzma are pretty much bust for me. I know they have a bunch of guys out in the backcourt, and you would think something would open up there, but they just haven't been coming through, and they want to run the big rotation. So I'm pretty much out on the Wizards. Kuzma, I think, is okay. And then obviously on the Pelicans side, got to watch the Zion news, but potentially we kick off the slate with a pretty important team in the Pelicans if Zion does indeed miss this game.
Yeah, we got a couple of people in chat. Beanair says he's officially joining the 888. I guess he's spending those Giants and Tommy DeVito bucks really well after the Giants win the other night. So congrats, Beanair. You beat my.
Get on in. The water's warm, Beanair. Get in the 888 with us here.
Get in there. Boss Bro said, why is Zion sitting? Could he be hurt? He asked. I don't know. Maybe he overrated lunch. I don't know, but he's questionable. He's on the report as questionable. I don't know what to tell you. He's just questionable. So it's possible. Good news. We'll get that news probably while we're on the show. So we'll obviously talk about it. AP, I'll go over to you. Wizards and the Pelicans. Is this a game you're interested in? Obviously, if Zion's out, yes, I think I should have more interest in some of these guys we discussed, but I'm operating like he's in. What's your kind of thoughts?
Yeah, so, a couple things. It's just like the nut matchup, like at any position, going against the Wizards. They don't play any defense. They're coming off just an absolute, embarrassing loss. They got absolutely curb stomped by Philly last game in Philadelphia too. And one other thing about the Pelicans side is their pricing. If you go back just 4 games, Zion was $9K, Ingram was 8,600, even Joval was over $7K, CJ McCollum was over $8K, and Herb Jones was close to $6K. And now when you look at it, 7.4 for CJ McCollum, 7.8 for Ingram, 7.9 for Zion, Joval 6.7. It's just a pricing thing. These guys are going to get ownership because the matchup is that good. If Zion is out, then I do think you can make the case to play multiple guys. And the problem here is if Zion plays, I don't see how this game stays close. I mean, I saw some indications of sharp money was on the Wizards, but I'm look, I've been watching this team. We've all been watching this team. What sharp is putting money on this team? I don't really know because they have been an absolute disaster. And matchup wise, the Pelicans match up so well against them. They don't have any if Gafford plays, that helps out a little bit, but he's not going to stop Zion. So it would be another spot where Zion could absolutely go off against a team that's just so bad, in the paint. So it's going to be one of those where it's just I would set a rule that limits, no more, definitely no more than 3 if you're trying to hit that optimal bill. I think that's a good setting here. And don't forget about some of the bench players. This is a great spot for Trey Murphy, good 3-point shooter. The Wizards give up a ton of open 3-point looks. So I would not be surprised if a guy like Trey Murphy came in and cooked. I would also this is way out there, Galaxy Brain, running 150. Type of stuff, but I would not be surprised if a guy like Jose Alvarado came in and racked up a bunch of steals. 2 quick steals and like a layup. Like those points can rack up so fast. You see it all the time. We've seen it with like TJ McCollum against this team. And so there's a lot of funky stuff. There's a lot like of different ways this game could play out. We got to keep an eye on the Zion news. If Zion's out, I think like Joval, incredible play. Ingram at his price, really good play. There's just going to be so many good plays. You guys hit the nail on the head on the Wizards side. The rotation sucks. The one guy I would consider playing like Kyle Kuzma, but I mean, you got to think that, it's just such a tough matchup. I'm probably underweight on the Wizards side. I just don't trust the rotation. It's been absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to mess with the Wizards. Just seems like a good slate to stay away from. Then, of course, the Pelicans news will adjust some stuff. Let's go to this next game, though. Definitely want to talk about someone in this game. It's the Pistons and the Philadelphia 76ers, and it's Joel Embiid, right? I mean, 11.8K, locking early. People might backload, and you know what you could do? You could play Joel Embiid without having some of the news and just say, hopefully I get some value. Hopefully I have a way to figure it out later on, right? We gained the Met2 value earlier. If you remember and saw the core plays, I know K. Fallick and some other members were, our other coordinators were on Met2 earlier on. There just could be value that opens up. And I just could see a lot of people backload and not get on him. And I'm interested in Joel Embiid in this spot. Now, I worry about the blowout. They're playing the Detroit Pistons. But typically, if there's a blowout, Embiid finds a way to get there. So I think Embiid is the main guy that I am looking at from this game. How about you, DC?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Embiid just been incredible. I mean, even in some of the blowouts for the 76ers, just last game, the Sixers ended up winning that game by 45 points, 146 to 101 over the Wizards. Embiid still got there, or close to it anyway, 62 DraftKings points. You do, it's weird to say, you do actually want more than that when you're paying the 11.8K price tag in today's NBA DFS streets. But yeah, I mean, he's got incredible upside. He's been incredibly consistent as well, just getting it done night after night. Just an amazing season so far for Joel Embiid, even better than last year, obviously, when he won the MVP. So he's been awesome. He's really the only guy, though, on the Sixers that I'm looking at. Possible to get him in for sure, kind of depending on where the news breaks elsewhere. Like you said, you could do a lot worse than locking him in early and figuring it out. So that's certainly an option against Detroit, who's not going to have an answer for Embiid, missing Jalen Duren still. Bagley also out. They're really, really weak on the interior. This does lean toward an Embiid game. The other guy who has a really good matchup is Tyrese Maxey, but 9.1K, kind of hard to get to him, I think. I think if you're paying up for a 76er, it's got to be Embiid. He's the guy that I'm looking at. Probably the only 76er that is on my radar tonight. And then Detroit side, I'm not going to this team. Mostly healthy outside of the big men. But even then, Isaiah Stewart just hasn't shown enough upside at 5.7K. If you do play him, make sure it's at power forward or a forward spot instead of center. I think that's important, but I don't really see anything to go to here on Detroit on a 9-game slate, especially given that it's the early lock, right? I'm not locking in some of these, what I consider to be, mediocre values on the Detroit Pistons. So not a lot here, pretty much Embiid or bust for me in this game.
Yeah, listen, if Killian Hayes is on the winner and I log into him, like I'm not locking into him, right? If he's on the winner, it beats me. I'll move on and call it a day. AP, what about you? Is it Embiid or bust here? Are there any other options you're looking at?
I mean, would you be so Killian Hayes last time in this matchup? I mean, it's funny. He put up a 42 piece and how? I don't know. I mean, point guards against Philly has been a thing. I mean, a lot of that is driven by pace. Maxey, a guy that pushes the pace. And so it's really going to come down to Detroit, staying in this game. I obviously had that moneyline dog parlay that got us plus 5,000. And part of that was taking the Pistons over the Pacers. They fought hard in that game, but they did not obviously get it done. They just defensively, they're horrendous. They're bad in all areas. And it was Mathurin who just absolutely cooked them off the bench for Indy last game. So attacking the Pistons has just been an absolute printer. They're just terrible defensively. And here's the one thing I will say to make an argument for the Philly side is they haven't been like blowing teams out on the road. Their road, right? Like when they're at home, way different. But on the road, you've seen a lot more competitive games. Now, again, I say this with a lot of pause, like because we're talking about the Pistons and they suck. Okay, I'm not trying to talk about the Pistons, but what I'm saying is if Detroit can keep this within 15 or so points, you're going to get heavy minutes from Maxey. You're going to get heavy minutes from Joel Embiid, and at 11-8, he could absolutely put up a monster score tonight. And he's been crushing these easy matchups all season long. We've talked about it forever now, and it seems like every single matchup he has is like the Wizards, the Hawks, who are terrible against centers as well, or Detroit. And he's just put up monster numbers, like 70 pieces left and right. I mean, he had 62 in 29 minutes against the Wizards. So, like, I don't know. Embiid is going to be a great play tonight. They have no rim protection. I mean, when Jalen Duren was in there, he actually, I think he played him okay. He still put up a 61 piece, but he was 8 for 21 from the field. He's going to have a much more efficient outing tonight. So it's going to be tough going for the Pistons. Joel Embiid, a fine play. And then don't forget about Tyrese Maxey, though. Like, guards, if you just watch that game with Mathurin, and when you think about Tyrese Maxey's game, he could absolutely cook in this matchup too. And I don't think anyone's going to play him. So large field tournaments, Maxey at 9-1, it's hard to get up there, but he's a guy that could get you different, could change your whole roster construction, which is kind of what you want in tournaments as well. So, and then on the Pistons side, Cade has to like get it going. Like if you want, like in tournaments, I'm definitely going to have him in my MMA pool. Like he's 8-4. It's a great matchup for opposing guards. If it's not Killian Hayes this time around, has to be Cade Cunningham. So I actually don't hate him in tournaments, but it's really tough going for the Pistons right now.
Yeah, it is for sure. You talk about kind of flipping the bill a little bit. That's why one reason I might go Embiid, right? I might lock into an Embiid, and then like as I go on throughout the night, the build's just going to be different than everyone else when I make all my adjustments with news and everything like that. We'll see. I want to see what some of this early news is going to be, though. Like I said, I love Embiid in this spot. He's a great fantasy point per minute producer, and I think he's a really good stud spend on this slate. Let's go over to this next game. We got Atlanta Hawks, Toronto Raptors, and this is another game. I feel like the field is higher on this game than I am. Now, I don't mind some plays in this game. Kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on how to handle. Obviously, Atlanta is a team that we like to target, similar to the Wizards, similar to the Pacers, who we'll get to, and just other teams around the league. The Utah Jazz are just bad basketball teams that play at a fast pace and give up a ton of points. I do think the Raptors have good plays on it. Now, let's start with Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, 8.1K and 8.6. They're a bit pricier. For me, I don't like them as much as I like some of the cheaper options. Like, I don't mind OG in this matchup, kind of similar to Herb Jones. You get a defensive guy that can pick up a lot of those stocks and just finish in transition rather than in the half-court offense a little bit more. You get the old Dennis Schroeder revenge game if you like that. And then you get Jakob Poeltl, which you can make the case for him at 5'5". Now, center is pretty good, but you can also make the case that he's got to do a lot in this matchup, but you could argue the minutes might be there more than likely than other matchups he's been in. So for me, I like OG number 1. It's probably Schroeder number 2, and then Poeltl number 3. Just the thing I don't know what to do with him is, do I trust the minutes? Do I truly think he's going to get 30-plus minutes in this spot? DC, why don't you dive into this Toronto side of the ball? Because I think these guys are going to overall be over-owned on this slate.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the Pelican spot if Zion is in, where it's like the whole team, the whole starting lineup looks like pretty reasonable plays. I mean, I think what'd you say? You had OG 1, Schroeder 2. Like, I have Siakam, my favorite play here. I really haven't played him much at all this year, but just an awesome spot for him. Atlanta can't defend the rim. They give up points in transition. I think Siakam can get to the basket at will here. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some time at the 5 as well, especially if Chris Boucher misses this game. He's currently questionable. Could be a nice bump for, I think the obvious one would be Jakob Poeltl, who could get more minutes at center than he typically does. But I think, going to Siakam could make sense as well. So I like Siakam. I like Scotty Barnes. These guys are going to get the minutes every single night. You know that. The matchup's perfect against Atlanta. 241 total, really, really high for a Toronto game. Normally have some of the lower totals in the league. So I do like the Toronto side here, but it's close between all these guys. And it's not a team I want to go overboard with. I wouldn't play more than 2 of them on the same team, but they're all in play. Siakam, my favorite of the bunch. I do agree with you, though, Mangone. I think it's close between all these guys, and I do kind of think you can let roster construction a little bit guide you where you want to go with Toronto if you do want to get a piece of this team in a really, really good home matchup against Atlanta. Atlanta side's interesting, too, especially if DeAndre Hunter does miss. He's questionable, missed the last game. We saw a really tight rotation from them. Bogdanovich ended up playing, 36 minutes off the bench. One of the best games of his career, 57 fantasy points in that one. Wouldn't expect a repeat performance, make 10 three-pointers, 6,800, a little bit expensive. But Saddiq Bey played, I think, 39 minutes there. He'd be relied on to have a huge role at 6,100. And then DeJounte Murray, relatively cheap too. So definitely like the Toronto side better, but it does project to be a high-scoring, close game where you know where the minutes are going to go and the production is going to go in this one, at least from the Atlanta side. Toronto, some of the most consistent rotations and minutes in the league. So, yeah, another pretty interesting game early on. It's just one of those slates where there's a lot of different directions you can go. This one, I don't think you have to go to it. I don't see anything that I need to get into my lineups, but definitely one you don't want to write off entirely. The Toronto side in particular, all 5 members of the starting lineup look pretty interesting here.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, all of them are good and can get there. But I also think at the end of the night, I could stare at the slate and I could be like, okay, Toronto did good. Like, yeah, you got maybe 45 from Pascal Siakam, but is that going to win you the slate? Would I want that? Yeah, but yes, I can see the slate breaking upside, but I can also see the route where the game is a little more lamer than I think the ownership is on these plays. Keep in mind, a lot of people are going to be on them. That's why I just like some of the cheaper options, because I'm trying to do a little bit of a different build than some others. And I think there's other good pivots around that range that you can get to too, like Julius Randle, who we'll get to later. I think he could be an interesting pivot off of a Siakam at way lower ownership. So, but we'll keep diving into it more. AP, I want to get your thoughts on this game because I think this is a good one to discuss. I think it's one that a lot of people have some interest in, and they have to figure out, how many Raptors are too many Raptors. Obviously, news is going to affect that, but I think a lot of people want to get exposure to this game, and I think it's going to decide a lot of the scores on the night slate, right? If the Raptors smash, the scores are going to be a lot higher. If they don't do well, then you're going to see a lower scoring night.
Yeah, I think, just looking at this high total, and I mean, we all know I don't like under bets. At this point of the season, I don't like under bets. I do transition to when in January, February, I do bet way more unders because the game starts to matter just a little bit more then. You see more defense. But what I'm getting at is if DeAndre Hunter plays, that's going to help him from a matchup standpoint just a little bit. Out there on – they can actually do quite a bit with DeJounte Murray and DeAndre Hunter. They can kind of plug some holes defensively a little bit. I wouldn't mind an unders bet, but I'm always hesitant because the Hawks play with such pace and they love their transition buckets, but that's not really Toronto's style of game. However, for DFS purposes, we get a tight rotation, like you guys said. I'm not sure if I've been running the Scotty Barnes or Pascal Siakam rule quite often. I think there's one matchup where both of them hit value. It just doesn't happen too often. I'm not sure if I'm going to run that here, but I love this matchup for Pascal Siakam. The Hawks have not been good against power forwards, and they've allowed a lot of easy buckets in the paint too. So that's beneficial for guys like Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam. And then it's don't forget about Precious. I don't at 4.8. We need him to be more like 4K. So he's probably not in the player pool, but I do think you could get away with Gary Trent, who's 4K. It's going to be a good matchup for this backcourt. Obviously, whoever gets the Trae Young matchup is who you would want. And Dennis Schroeder, 6K, OG, 5.8, Gary Trent, 4K. It's just all too cheap. when I look at my builds, and I haven't actually ran any builds yet, but my assumption right now, just, being where we're at as far as this breakdown goes, I imagine I'm going to get a lot of Pelicans and a lot of Raptors, and it's going to look like a pretty nice, kind of balanced build, just because a lot of these guys feel underpriced. They're in really great matchups. The floor to ceiling kind of combination there really checks a lot of boxes. So I like the Toronto side. There's definitely going to be some pieces that I get on. And, the Hawks side is definitely tougher because Trae Young is priced way up, 9.9, a little too much. It's tough to play him when DeJounte's right there and they're both kind of overpriced. And then if we get Hunter back, that allows for a lot more depth at the wing position. So I'm definitely under on the Hawks side, over on the Raptors side, being at home in a pace-up matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why I'm higher on some of these like cheaper options on the Raptors, because I'm kind of betting for like those 40-point ceiling games from them. And I think a lot of people are doing those balanced builds. Not saying you can't play some of these plays in this game. I just want to play them a little bit different. I kind of want to go up and grab like an Embiid possibly. And again, it depends. News could shift and I could gain a lot of value, or I could not gain value, and that could change the opinion on how I'm kind of playing this slate. But that's just some of the thoughts that I'm going through. Also, Raptors have been really, really bad in transition offense this season. And the Hawks is a great spot to play well in transition. So I don't think everything matches up completely with these teams. So let's keep moving this thing along, though. 3 games in, obviously 3 big games that we discussed. Let's go to Charlotte, Miami. You could argue this might be a game that catches you up a little bit. DC, I don't mind Nick Richards, but that's obviously a difference between this Miami front court with Bam Adebayo out and Orlando Robinson protecting the rim. So I don't hate Nick Richards here, but not a lot of plays I love. What are you doing with this game, DC?
Yeah, I think I might have more interest in this game than you do. I've talked about the Heat defense not being the same with Bam Adebayo out. That's certainly true. If you look at some of the numbers they've given up recently, and then there is, I think it might go under the radar, but Josh Richardson going to sit this game out. Miami's already been running a very, very tight rotation, essentially playing just 8 guys in each of their last 2 or 3 games. Obviously missing Bam Adebayo, still missing Tyler Hero. Haywood Highsmith, who had been starting for them, remains out. And if you take out now Josh Richardson additionally out of the equation, I'm not even sure who is going to be. Listen, they're not going to play a 7-man rotation, but I'm not even sure who the 8th guy is going to be. It could be R.J. Hampton, Jamal Cain, Nikola Jovic could step in there. Point is, the remaining Miami guys are going to play big minutes in this one. There's just no question about it. Even in 2 of the 5 spots on the roster, position wise, Orlando Robinson and Kevin Love are essentially splitting the center minutes. So the 1 through 4 positions here are just wide open. And I think all these Miami guys are pretty good plays. Obviously a decent enough matchup here against Charlotte at home. Yeah, you prefer them when LaMelo Ball is in there, but it's still not a bad spot at all for the Heat. 222 total. Miami favored by 7.5. Pretty good team total for them. So yeah, I think I haven't played much Jimmy Butler, and he doesn't make me super comfortable. But I think he's got to have a big role here. Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, even Waquez off the bench, I think is okay. It's a good spot for the remaining Miami guys. So again, another tough team to narrow down where you want to go. But I do think I want a piece of this Miami team. Even Kevin Love himself, he's been pretty good in this backup center role. He's 5,200. You can actually play him at a forward spot as well. And one solution Miami does have potentially to, their kind of shortage of bodies tonight is to play Love at the 4 alongside a center like Orlando Robinson, which could potentially get him more minutes with Josh Richardson out. So I think Kevin Love's interesting. I think these guys will all be fairly low owned and for a good spot with secure minutes. Got more interest in Miami tonight than I have at pretty much any point this season. I'll be looking to get 1 or 2 of these guys into my lineup most likely tonight. And then Charlotte side, really just Terry Rozier that I'm looking at. His role has been ridiculous since LaMelo Ball has gone down, 13 assists in the last game. And Jimmy Butler guarding Gordon Hayward. It's going to be Kyle Lowry most likely on Rozier, who I think Rozier, I mean, he had 60 DraftKings points, 39 minutes. He's been playing 40 minutes every night. This looks like a good game to me. I think I'm more interested in this game than you are, Mangone.
Yeah, I will say I don't mind Caleb Martin on the Heat side a little bit.
Yeah.
If you play those balanced builds, you definitely can land on him. It's a good spot. Little revenge game for him as well, if you care about that kind of stuff. Daniel Gafford will play. We just got that news across the timeline, so that means we'll get the Pelicans news pretty shortly on the Zion stuff. Well, as we're waiting on that, AP, break this one down. Heat Hornets. Anything you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, DC hit the nail on the head on a lot of this. We should get a very tight rotation on the Miami side. I mean, are they really going to miss Josh Richardson? I think he was like 0 for 7 last game. Like, didn't really do much to help them out. But I think he played 20, 25 minutes, something like that. So that is 25 additional minutes that has to go somewhere. And their backcourt's already set. But they have like plenty of depth in the front court. But their backcourt rotation should be pretty tight here. It's not like we've seen Jamal Cain enter the rotation. I mean, one game, 29 minutes against the Nets. And then RJ Hampton, he's not playing. So you're going to get a lot of Caleb Martin, a lot of Duncan Robinson, and a lot of Kyle Lowry. Jimmy Butler, like, it's really impressive kind of what he's doing. He's setting his teammates up. He's getting them in the right spots, and they've been highly efficient, like highly, highly efficient. Duncan Robinson, incredible game last game. Same with Caleb Martin, and it was Kevin Love off the bench. Just extremely efficient with the minutes. We haven't actually had to see like Jimmy take over a game. And that's what you need to get that ceiling Jimmy Butler score. So what you need to happen is these guys to miss shots. If they miss shots, you're going to get that Jimmy game. So I started the day under on Jimmy Butler, but I do think he's a fine tournament play because we're going to get a tight rotation. I almost like consider setting a rule. Like Caleb Martin should be chalk, should be popular. His roles here is going to be massive. I almost want to like play guys like Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, even potentially like, I mean, you could go back to Orlando Robinson. He was in foul trouble a lot of the game. And then Kevin Love, more of a fringe tournament play. But if I'm playing Jimmy Butler, I almost want to play him on an island just because if we get that true Jimmy Butler game, I could see other guys on the team kind of underwhelming. So I'm going to implement some rules on the Miami Heat side. I like this spot. I think the game stays close. It was a competitive game last game, and that was with the Heat like shooting lights out. So I think I think 8 points is too much. Like I almost like a little bet here on the Hornets, especially with how competitive that game was. And if you keep that in mind, you get a tight rotation on the Hornets side too. So while the pace isn't like that friendly, I do think this game is viable. Don't go and like full stack it. That's not what I'm saying. Grab bits and pieces and implement them into your lineups.
Yeah, I just know how I play DFS, and this is what's going to happen. If we get the news right on this Lakers stuff, I just know I'm going to sit there and go, I could play Caleb Martin at 6'4", or I could play Austin Reeves at 6'5", and I just know what I'm going to do. Like I'm just going to watch, or I'm going to be waiting for a starting lineup. And again, I'm definitely like kind of already made some decisions on what I think is going to happen. But I obviously will adjust myself as we kind of gain some news, which again, still waiting on that Zion news. That'll come in here shortly. Good segue though, because I talked about Austin Reeves. Obviously a good spot for him if all those guys are out. Obviously, if only one is out, you gotta like either Braun or AD. So that's gonna be a big piece of news that could matter if you lock yourself in. Like, let's say you lock yourself into some of these Pelicans guys that we got, and you lock yourself into maybe some of these Raptors studs. But what if LeBron is in there and there's no AD, right? Like, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, hey, if that goes on, then LeBron's going to be an amazing play that people really can't go up and get. So just worth mentioning. We'll see how the news breaks. We will get an update, I think, at 6:30 Eastern that I think will be able to help us decide how to handle that situation in general. D'Angelo Russell is 6'9". That's another tag to talk about there because obviously if those guys are out, he's going to see huge usage. If you are missing AD, well, I know Jackson Hayes has been in there at times, but what would happen to Christian Wood at 5K or a Rui Hachimura? You'd have to obviously consider him at 4'9" in this spot. So DC, break this one down and honestly talk about some of these Spurs on the flip side, right? Because if there's no AD, obviously Victor Wembanyama could be a really interesting spin at 8.8K. If the game is competitive, you could see a 60-point game out of him. You can make a case for a guy like a Jeremy Sokan at 5.4K. Could have a pretty solid game. A Devin Vassell. Like, there's a lot of interesting plays in this game to discuss. So how are you handling this Spurs and Lakers situation?
Yeah, the Spurs side is pretty simple for me. If AD is out in particular, I want to get to Wembanyama. I've been on him the last 2 games with him moving to the 5, right? Big switch in the Spurs starting lineup. He's been starting at center, and the numbers have shown 5 and 4 blocks in those 2 games, 18 and 20 rebounds in the 2 games. The only 2 games all season, by the way, that he started at center. He put up 51 DraftKings points and against Houston. The Spurs only scored 82 points total in that game. He still had a strong performance at 8,800, put up 63 fantasy points the game prior to that against Chicago, the other game that he started at center. And if you take Anthony Davis out of the equation, this Lakers defense is going to fall off an absolute cliff. Wembanyama, I think at that point, it's going to be Jackson Hayes. It's going to be Christian Wood, Jared Vanderbilt, maybe. I think Wembanyama could potentially go off. I do have much less interest in him, though. He's still a fine play, but much less interest in him if Anthony Davis is in there, and to a little bit lesser extent, LeBron. I just think if those guys both sit, like, this will be a game the Spurs, maybe try to get a win here and break that long losing streak. Obviously, Wembanyama would likely play a huge role in that. I don't really trust anyone else from the Spurs. I'm seeing some ownership, maybe on a Jeremy Sohan. I'll pass if people are going to be on him. He's been in the starting lineup, really hasn't done much. I just don't trust the Spurs outside of Wembanyama, but I do really like Wembanyama depending on who plays for the Lakers. And then the Lakers side is tough without knowing the news. But if LeBron and Anthony Davis both miss, which I think is certainly possible, I think you could play Russell, Reeves, Reddish. Prince is cheap. I don't know what Hachimura, like you mentioned, is 4,900. All these guys just are awesome plays because the Lakers really, the studs haven't missed many games. So these guys, their fantasy production is just not going to be very good when you're playing alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. To take them out of the equation, that's going to change. And the matchup really doesn't get much better than it does against the Spurs. So obviously huge news to watch for the Lakers. I think the most likely thing is one of the 2 guys misses, which does make it more difficult. If it's Anthony Davis that's out and LeBron James in, I think you got to take a hard look at LeBron himself in this matchup. Doesn't get much better. I would probably just ride with LeBron and fade most of the other Lakers at that point. And then we'll see, if Anthony Davis sits, what the Lakers decide to do at center. Not clear to me exactly who they'd start there. I think it could be Hayes. It could be Vanderbilt. Could be Christian Wood. It wouldn't completely shock me if they went that direction, even though he's been out of the rotation. So kind of a lot depends on what the Lakers do with the injuries. And then if those guys are out, what they do with the starting lineup. So all kinds of moving parts with the Lakers. If you're playing NBA DFS tonight, I assume you are if you're watching the show, you're going to have to pay attention, at least close attention, at least through lock of this 8 p.m. window, because this Lakers-Spurs game, obviously very critical. I think probably the most important spot on the entire slate. We'll see what the Lakers do with LeBron and Anthony Davis tonight.
Yeah, so a couple things to note. Mr. Patrick Rice says, LeBron and AD going to eat popcorn and watching Wemby blow out. So counter argument to this, if I told you the Lakers play the Spurs on Friday night in San Antonio on ESPN, would that maybe change your opinion? You could make a case that they maybe at least have one play tonight, or they have both sit because it's an ESPN game. They are on NBA TV tonight. But I could see them going one play tonight, one play tomorrow, and also have one play tonight to just give them good treatment when you're not having to travel and stuff, right? It definitely seems like a spot that you could make a case for that. You can create whatever narrative you want, but point is, I think that's a little bit of a different factor that could be playing in, obviously, with that ESPN game on Friday night, and they're just going to stay in the same location. AP, how does that change your opinions on it? That was something I just wanted to look up the schedule real quick, because whenever we do have these situations, we always kind of go to the schedule, and I hadn't done that yet today. Yeah. So what's your overall thoughts on how you're going to handle this game? Because for me, AP, I am planning on backloading a bit because this news could be important, and I know DC didn't like Jeremy Sokan, and listen, I'm not racing to play him, but if things don't fall my way, I feel like I have plays in this game and later on that I can get to that I'm comfortable.
I think, so I did the same thing. I looked it up, and they play obviously ESPN game. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say that I don't think they both play tonight. Now, I don't have, it's pure speculation. It's more so like they've been playing an insane amount of minutes. They had extra games that aren't factoring into the regular season from the in-season tournament. This is the perfect, rest. Let Christian Wood and these, Max Christie and these guys get in there and cook a little bit. And I think the Spurs, I'm sticking to like my thoughts from, this morning. I think they get a win. I think they break their little win. Their win's not coming on Friday. Their win is not coming at the ESPN game when AD and Bron are both going to play. They're not missing that game. Lakers are going to win that one. This series is going to be 1-1. The Spurs get the win tonight. And again, we still have to wait for that news. Like, they could surprise me. And I would be like so surprised if they like that. What that would tell me is the in-season rules, like the rest rules, they're actually like carrying some weight this season if LeBron and AD both play. Because I think one sits. I think for sure one sits, but I kind of think both sit here. So we obviously have to wait for that. The guy that I'm agreeing with you guys, and this is based off of commentary, just him coming in a little hobbled. But Anthony Davis is the guy that I think sits. So we want to see who gets the start. Is it going to be Christian Wood? There's Christian Wood. There's Jackson Hayes. And then I see a really big role for Rui Hachimura as well. Keep this in mind. If that happens, yes, Christian Wood will become a really good play. But with Wemby switching to the 5, so we were just doing the flow chart. When it was Collins at the 5, Wemby at the 4, and they mix and match. Power forwards was just tough. Wemby's a brutal matchup. He just truly is. We've started to see that. Like Şengün played normal minutes, and like he very, very much underwhelmed based off of like what he typically has done this season in that matchup against Wemby. So my point there is I would love Rui Hachimura as a play. He would, even if he doesn't start. Obviously, if LeBron said too, he would likely start. But Rui Hachimura would be the guy that I would have a ton of interest in. I would still have interest in Christian Wood, but Rui would be my guy. And then obviously it would be Austin Reeves, the other guy that I would have a ton of interest in as well. And then I think the Spurs are going to play tough. They're going to try to get a win. We Pop, I should knock on wood. We saw a little bit tighter of a rotation. Hopefully we see that tonight. And this game's going to be really great for fantasy purposes if it falls that way. So this is a perfect spot. Wait and sit for the news. And the good thing about it too, if the chips don't fall our way, we have a Pacers Bucks with the 259 total that we haven't talked about yet. There's just so many pivot options available to where I think there's so much value in kind of waiting for the news tonight. So that's what I'm going to do if we don't get that news here before the initial lock. And I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, we did get the Zion news. Zion is out. I am not happy about that.
Take back everything I just said.
Yeah, I know.
P777. No, I'm just kidding.
We definitely, but like to be fair, AP, like, so sure, Zion's out. But if AD and LeBron are out, like you want guys in that game, and you can get pieces early and adjust for it later, or make plans for it later, right? That's just something that you got time and you can think through a little bit. So, I'm not happy about it. Obviously, we'll make adjustments. DC, what's your thoughts on this Zion news now?
This is going to be a wild slate tonight is my initial thoughts on the Zion news. Obviously, the Pelicans, they have at least you have to seriously consider McCollum, Ingram, Jones, Valanciunas. I think Trey Murphy was in play already. He becomes a pretty interesting value. The Pelicans, part of the problem with Valanciunas in the past was Larry Nance off the bench, right? He would come in and steal some minutes. And then recently with Nance out, it's been Zion who has played the backup 5 for the Pelicans and kind of kept Valanciunas from really smashing most nights. Obviously no Zion. So they might dust off, Robinson Earl or Cody Zeller, guys who really have been out of the rotation, but you now have a chance for the ceiling minutes game from Jonas Valanciunas in pretty much the best possible spot. So you got to have, I think, at least one Pelican, maybe up to 3 on any builds, and it's gonna be interesting. It's like it's like Omar from The Wire. Like, you come at the king, you best not miss. That's what it feels like tonight in the NBA DFS streets. You're gonna have like, it's just gonna be so many good plays when it's all said and done. That make sure you get upside everywhere, I think, would be the main thing I would say, because given this news, the Miami minutes, Lakers guys we think have a good chance of sitting. Yeah, it's gonna be a wild night. We're gonna see high scores tonight, no question about it.
Yeah, that's why when I think of those mid-tier builds, like these 5K guys that we look at, like the OG Anobis and the Dennis Schroeder's, like that's why I like them so much, because their ceilings, like what they can provide, is just absurd. So that's one thing to think about for sure here.
Part of the problem is back to the pricing too. Not only now it's more usage, minutes to go around, but it's the Pelican side they're just underpriced. It's just a fact. Tonight, I feel like, so what's like an easy way to kind of tackle all of this instead of going team by team, creating a bunch of rules? Would you guys agree that just go into Sabre, pull up the team stacks, and uncheck 5 and 4-man stacks? I think so that will allow only 3-man stacks. I still, despite like you could full stack some of these games, but I don't know if there's a team where I would want more. Like, I don't know if there's a team on the slate where I'd want 4 guys from, because there's just so many good spots to target. So I think that's going to be my approach from kind of like a macro rules standpoint on the slate.
Yep, agree with you on that one, AP, for sure. And like, honestly, like, I'm not saying Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam can't get there in this matchup, but like, I feel like I could be eating into myself a little bit where I'm going to think about those studs, right? Like, one thing I thought about in yesterday's slate is I think you could have gotten away with Paul George and Kawhi, but I was nervous to play both together just because there are other studs I like too. And just think about that with paying off the salaries. I think that's kind of worth mentioning. We did get, this is separate, but NFL news. We got Keenan Allen's out for tomorrow, and Devontae Adams is now questionable with an illness. So tomorrow's showdown slate might be hilarious. We'll have to see. Watch the shows tomorrow. Will be a fun time breaking that down. Let's keep moving along, though, to the next game up. We got, I think, we got 4 games left. Indiana, Milwaukee. So one reason I was like earlier kind of talking about not being super excited about the Pelicans game if Zion was in and this Raptors game is I felt like I had a really good game at lower ownership in playing some of these Bucks against the Pacers. Like Brook Lopez, who has a really nice ceiling at his price. Bobby Portis, who I think has a nice ceiling at his price. Obviously, we have enough value. You can make a case for, paying up for some of his studs on Milwaukee. So, DC, I'll go to you. I think this is not a game to ignore. What's your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to ignore it, but I will say, given how the news is trending, obviously with the Zion stuff, this is probably a game I'm not going to end up with players on my main lineup. Obviously, if you're, playing 150 or multiple teams, you're not going to ignore a game with a 258 total. But the problem is these teams are healthy for the most part. Nembhard out for Indiana, but that doesn't change a whole lot, at least for me. We did see these teams play recently in the in-season tournament back on, about a week ago on the 7th. Giannis was kind of surprisingly unaggressive in that game, or less than I thought he'd be. At least still was good. He's been excellent. I don't see myself getting to a lot in this game. I don't see myself getting to 11-4 Giannis or 11-1 Halliburton, but they both have amazing matchups, right? Halliburton gets the Bucks backcourt, which has been a spot to attack all seasons long. The flow chart play put up 63 fantasy points against them back on that game, and then 2 slow games in the in-season championship, and then that hangover game against Detroit where he started slow, still had 50 fantasy points. But prior to that, he was absolutely going off, and I do kind of expect, given now in the magnitude of this game and the matchup for Halliburton, he could crush here. I think if I was going to this game, it would be the studs. Put Halliburton and Giannis on the same team. You'll get them both really low owned, massive total. Both could easily go for 70. Wouldn't shock me from either guy. And I do think their minutes are correlated together too. So again, I don't see myself getting to a ton in this game just because of the injury news on other teams, but incredible game environment. I do think both teams will want to win this game. And then, Halliburton and Giannis would be the guys that I would prioritize. But, there are certainly other pieces of, that are in play here. You mentioned Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis is cheap. It's just going to be really hard today, Mangone, to get to plays that aren't related to guys missing due to injury. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be hard to just play guys who are kind of in their normal role given all the other opportunities. So if I'm going to do it, it's probably going to be with studs like Giannis and Halliburton. But like I said, to be honest, I'll be probably uncomfortably under the field on this one, although it's going to be low owned in general, just because everyone's going to, I think rightfully so, follow the injury news in general on this slate.
Yeah, so let me counter with a guy that I don't think is on anyone's radar. He wasn't on anyone's radar the other day, and I should have mentioned him on the show. I was going to, and then I kind of held back. Bobby, our guy Bobby H, he played him the other day at 2%. It's Benefit Mathir season, right? Like, I think it's not a bad spot. Someone said he never smashes in the back-to-backs, but like Andrew Nemhard's not there. So there is something to benefit here for him. And I know he's not a guard, but he's a ball handler. And we like guys that handle the ball against Milwaukee, right? I don't know, AP, can I sell you on him at a very low ownership in this matchup? And are you interested in any of these Bucks options as well?
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely smoked this. The first time they played, it was in Indy, but 36 minutes, 49 DK points. He looked incredible against Detroit. And look, like what you do right now, and it's tougher with the Pacers because they have such a wide rotation. But wings and combo guards against the Bucks right now, you just play it. Like a prime example was what Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan did to this team. They legit could not stop the duo of Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan. It was like absolutely insane. And that's just like what happens when you have when you have Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley as like the key guys in your backcourt. So it's becoming like such a tough matchup for the Bucks. And that's why, we're debating the total. Everyone knows I love ND overs. Well, it's at a range right now. My one concern with like 258, like I just can't bet the under here. I can't, because you'll be tilting all game when they're sprinting back and forth, getting easy buckets. It's just going to be the most tilting thing to watch. But one quarter can just screw you. If they have one quarter that underwhelms at a 258.5 total, you're screwed. Like, you really are. And that's what happened like the last two times these two teams played. So maybe under is the sharper bet, but I'm still not a believer in that. And I think Mathurin is the guy that's somewhat interesting, but 5,500 is a big price tag. And then on the other side, like, Dame Lillard needs to have a big game at some point. Like, I think like this is probably the wrong slate, but man, I mean, 3 for 17 against the Bulls. Like, it was an embarrassing fourth quarter. It was not Dame time, but if there was a stud to get up to, I mean, Giannis is up there. He's up there with Joel Embiid in that category. But as the slate is developing, it's tough to find the cheap value to make those stud plays work. So, and I think actually a lot of it could be what happens with the Lakers news too. That's where. So if I backloaded and if I built my lineups to just kind of take advantage of news, I would want to filter in and get overweight on some of these studs, because I feel like a lot of people are going to be playing the mid-tier route, which is probably right now the optimal route to go. But if the Lakers game falls the way we think it could, where let's just like hypothetical, but like if LeBron, AD, and if Vanderbilt all sat, you're going to have some, depending on what the starting lineup is, you're going to have some cheap pieces that are viable that could open up a lot. So it really just depends on what happens from a news standpoint. I also think if you go the mid-tier route, you could get away with fading this game, fading a 258.5 total, just because we have other spots where they're underpriced, we have tight rotations, and we have other good pace spots. So it really comes down to what are you trying to do on the slate? Where's ownership going to fall? How do you want to get different, et cetera?
Yep, agree with you on that. Let's head to this next game where there is more injury news, right, to discuss. Desmond Bane is questionable. That's not nothing. Obviously, huge usage here. And it's something I think that's getting overlooked as a conversation point with all this other news that's, kind of filing in. Now, is the matchup against Houston my favorite at target? No, they play at a slower pace. But Jaren Jackson Jr. at 8K would obviously be someone that you would want to consider. Then you have to look at who's going to be the guy that gets the bump. I mean, we saw Jake Gilliard have a day once this season. Could it be him again? I'm not sure. DC, do you have any idea of how you're going to handle this Desmond Bane news? Because I think this is a really unknown spot that it could technically go in lower owned and win someone this slate.
Yeah, it certainly could. Bane, questionable to play. I mean, I'm just looking at that Memphis roster, who they've got left. Like, this team is so screwed if Bane misses games, this one or, any extended period of time. Actually, they do get John Morant back, right, in a game or two. So that'll be okay. Never mind. But, yeah, for tonight at least, Morant obviously still out. Bane been kind of doing everything offensively for them. We have seen Jaren Jackson have some big games recently, but obviously he's not really a guy whose role can change all that much, even with Bane out. Yes, maybe a couple ticks up on the usage rate, but he's not really not at all like a traditional scorer. So I don't even know who would kind of play the Bane role, because it's, point guards, they've got Rose and Gilliard. I think Rose would actually have a really big role when he's in there, but the minutes, I don't know if they would really change all that much. Jalen Noel could potentially come in at 4,100. I think he would be the best bet to try to fill as much as he could the Desmond Bane role. I might have some interest there, but it's a brutal matchup, right? Against Houston, who's got a really good defense. They play slow. They just held the Spurs to 82 points. So even if Bane misses, I would be pretty cautious with this Memphis team. I think it would be Noel. That would be my favorite play, assuming he started for Bane, which I think he would. But I'm not going crazy with Memphis. And, given all the other good plays on this slate, frankly, if this news comes in late, I don't know how much of Memphis I'll even get to, because I'll probably have a bunch of guys locked in already on most teams. But, yeah, Noel would be the guy to watch for me on Memphis. And then, Houston side, I mean, Van Vliet, I think, is a fine play. You can say that almost every night. Consistent minutes, consistent performance. He's at least interesting. But this is not the game environment that I really want to target in general. A lower total, so much great injury news to attack. And then you also got, obviously, the 258 total with Milwaukee and Indiana. So I don't see going to a lot here. Bane news could make me get on one, maybe two Memphis guys, but that's pretty much it from this game for me. Not going to be a game I personally attack much, depending a little bit on the Bane news.
All right, AP, how do you want to handle this Memphis side? Obviously, it's not nothing. And, hey, you could definitely make a case that Houston in a spot against a Memphis team that we're not scared of their defense, like Şengün at 8-9, yeah, it's pricey, but the dude has a ceiling. And Fred VanVleet, too, at 8-5. They're not the worst contrarian spend-up options, obviously.
Yeah, so I was, Desmond Bane questionable with an illness. I was texting with my buddy Jeremy from Memphis, friends with one of the trainers. He thinks it's more so probable, but it'll come down to whatever Taylor Jenkins, says. So I don't it's obviously really impactful news, and it kind of goes with what we've been saying. I mean, it's, if he doesn't play, that's one. I mean, the Rockets are going to absolutely roll. The spread is kind of indicative for him being truly questionable. So there's that. If he plays, I'm not paying $9K for Desmond Bane. We'll get the Dylan Brooks matchup. Dylan Brooks, literally this fool, before games start, he just will 5-6 minutes just sit there and stare at whoever he's going to be guarding. I know it's a bit. It has to be a bit. And the dude has to just be fully embracing who he is and what his role is on this team. But it is just hilarious. And I don't want to mess with that. This guy doesn't care about offense anymore. He's literally all in on locking the dude up, which you got to like that if you're the Rockets. Let Jalen Green cook. Let your better offensive players get the shots up. I feel like that would have helped, maybe he's more inspired playing his former team. I don't freaking know, but I don't think I'm going to, fall for that one playing Dylan Brooks. I don't think I've played Dylan Brooks all year long, and I don't think it's going to start tonight, even though maybe he's a little bit more motivated. So on the surface, I don't have a ton of interest in this game. Obviously, that would change if Desmond Bane sits, but it's a 211 total. We have so many other better spots already that are very similar, but have better matchups, better pricing, better pace. So this is probably going to be a game that I just kind of overlook and move on from.
Yeah, general piece of advice. You don't really want to play the guy whose matchup on the other side is a guy who's like singular life focus is making your players life hell on the offensive end, right? On a 9-game slate, that's not really. I don't want to attack the lunatic who's like trying to murder my player. I'll pass on Desmond.
Oh, this would be funny from Beanair. Great comment.
Yeah, we'll see with Dylan Brooks. That was a whiff by me for getting the revenge game, but that's because I've liked that dude from my memory. I just don't deal with him too much. So let's go to the next game. We got 2 games left. Guys, hit that like. We want to be able to give out those plays of the day. I haven't even looked to see what we are with the likes. So, but let's get those up, right? Let's get the people excited. We're at 100 likes. We got 400 watching. So get those likes in there. We appreciate it. Next game up is a pretty good one. Knicks and Utah. We are missing Jordan Clarkson for the next 2 weeks. Emmanuel Quickly is questionable for this game. And Mitchell Robinson has not been there. And when someone like that gets ruled out, we kind of target the situation for a couple days after. I mean, Hartenstein's going to be lost in the shuffle in a pretty good matchup at 5K. You have to deal with those Utah rotations. DC, are you going to target this game? I think this game is a perfect backup plan if things don't go your way with some stuff, but not somewhere I absolutely love.
Agree 100%. I was going to call this like a bailout game, right? If you start off, if you're not on the right pieces early, maybe the Lakers news doesn't go the way you were planning. This game is a good one to pivot to for low ownership, but still plenty of upside. Utah is, man, there are some really bad teams in the NBA this year. Obviously, Detroit, San Antonio's been awful. You throw Utah in that bucket, they can't win a game, can't play defense. Big total for the Knicks here, especially compared to what they're usually at. And missing some pieces, too. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson going to be out a while. I think there's a good chance Quickly misses this game as well. I mean, Jalen Brunson, that's a nice price tag for him, sitting down there at 8,200, especially if Quickly sits. I know he's coming off a little bit of a slow game against Toronto and then Boston the game before that, but that's kind of to be expected, right? Toronto's got OG to throw on him. Boston, one of the better defensive teams. Now he gets Utah, who can't stop anybody. I mean, they've got a rookie starting at point guard. Really, really good spot for Jalen Brunson. He'll be overlooked tonight. Like you said, I don't really plan to play him on my main lineup, but if things break a certain way, I have no problem. I'll feel good about Jalen Brunson's 38 minutes against the Utah Jazz if it comes down to that. So I like him. The other guy I think to consider here is Julius Randle. No Lauri Markkanen for the Jazz, or he's questionable, right? I guess, he's probable. Okay, so he might be in there. But yeah, still a good spot for Randle, given all the guys they're missing. Brunson and Randle, the two guys I'm looking at most closely from the Knicks. I do think you could go to Hartenstein if you wanted. I know he came off the bench last game, still performed well, played 27 minutes, 29 DraftKings points, 5K. Still a reasonable play. We saw Sims start. I wouldn't go there, even at 3,800, 21 minutes. I think it'll be on the high side for him when it's all said and done. So the price tag's enticing. I know he's starting in center. I don't think I would do that. It's Brunson and then Randle. I do rank them in that order, but I think it's close between the two. And then the Utah side, this is not a team you really want to attack. Rotations all over the place. Their coach is crazy. If you guys listen to his pressers, he's like, I don't know. He seems a little bit crazy to me, and I just don't trust this Utah team right now, even with the guys missing, Clarkson out and all that stuff. So I'm off of Utah, have been most of the year. That'll remain the case. But New York, yeah, I think you got to consider the Knicks, and especially if maybe LeBron and AD both end up playing, you need to make some changes to your lineup. This is a good game to do it with. Much better, I think, than Memphis and Houston.
If I agree, AP, I pulled up the flow chart to see if Jalen Brunson was on it, and he's not. And that surprised me a little bit because, I mean, point guards do absolutely torch Utah typically, right? I think you can make a case for Jalen Brunson here. I liked what DC said about it. Like, he's 8.2K. And, like, if I told you CJ McCollum, who's, like, a little bit less, but a little less price, but higher ownership. If I told you to get Jalen Brunson at like, a tenth of the ownership, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about it, right? So what's your thoughts on Jalen Brunson? Julius Randle obviously could be an interesting play too. We saw Kawhi torch them recently. So I think there's some good spends here with the Knicks to consider.
Yeah, so I think he just missed out. I mean, it's a great point guard flow chart type of night. So you could get there. I'm like, look, man, I hate the Jazz rotation. I'll be really quick with this. Like, I saw like Colin Sexton was like, I just think that's a bad play if he's going to get any ownership at all. So I like Keontae George is like the one guy. I still think he's a fringe play. I don't trust the Jazz at all. And it's a tough matchup against the Knicks. So I am fine just like under projecting all of them. A lot of that is due to the context of the slate. We have so many good spots. So that's going to be a game or the side that I'm under on. I think this is like Hartenstein, he closed. Like the guys to be if Quickly plays, I would definitely play him over Colin Sexton. Great spot for him. If he misses, I'd be cautious with Dante DiVincenzo and Jericho Sims because we saw Josh Hart and Hartenstein be the guys that closed alongside Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle. So Hartenstein would be the guy that I think is intriguing along with Josh Hart. And then, in tournaments, if the game stays close, obviously Julius Randle is always in play. The price tag is still fine. So a good matchup for the Knicks, but not a game that I'm like super, super excited about.
Okay, and Boss Pro says that Brunson will be popular on FanDuel. To be fair, we normally reference DraftKings. You're right. Probably on FanDuel he'll be a little bit more popular, but DK definitely not. So FanDuel, you're probably right about that, though, for sure. All right, let's go to the last game of the slate. Brooklyn Nets, Phoenix Suns. Little revenge game for Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. DC, how are you handling this game? Obviously not a, I think if it was another slate, we'd consider this game more, but with that big three back, it just seems like a good spot to kind of sell on this game.
Yeah, I think so. On the second half of a back-to-back here as well, are the Suns could see potentially Booker managed a little bit with the minutes, given kind of the injuries he's dealt with this year and in the past. And with Durant probable now, right? Yeah, it looks like he's going to play. Bradley Beal is going to play. Assuming all three guys are in, Booker, Durant, and Beal, which is the assumption right now. Even with Josh Okogie out, Grayson Allen out, probably a team I'm not going to go to a ton when all three of those guys are healthy. That'll be the case tonight. I do think Brooklyn really going to want to win this game with they've got all the players on their team that they traded for. Durant, obviously led by Bridges, who I think is going to, like you said, wanted to be on the Suns, kind of took off when he got traded to Brooklyn. Probably a good thing, honestly, for his career overall. But yeah, I could see Bridges having a monster game in this spot. There's no reason he couldn't against that Suns defense. So he's interesting at 8,400, another guy that I'm sure will go under the radar. But the Brooklyn Nets are mostly healthy now, missing Simmons and Walker still. So, yeah, Bridges my favorite. I think you could go to Cam Thomas or Dinwiddie. But, again, last game of the night, hard to imagine having many spots left on your roster to get to these guys. Maybe another bailout game here, frankly. These last two games, again, plenty of decent pieces that could absolutely get there, but nothing that I love. I do like the Brooklyn side slightly better than Phoenix, but yeah, if I end up with a bunch of this game, the earlier games probably didn't end up going my way. So hopefully it won't be here. I think, yeah, you can go do it if you want. If you want to get low on players, still with upside, this is a decent one to do it, but nothing that's really popping for me personally.
All right, Boucher is available if that matters to you. That's information that just came across. And DeAndre Hunter, we didn't mention he is out, so that's something else to call out as well. AP, I'll go to you. Final game of the night. Break this one down for me.
Yeah, we are running up against it, and I'm behind with my stuff. So I'm off this game. I'm going to watch it. It's going to be a great game to watch, but I'm off it. Mikal Bridges, the one guy, and Cam Johnson that I left in my pool, but I highly doubt I play them. It'd just be like playing on a revenge narrative. So I do think the game plays a little bit more defensive, though. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, maybe play some more showdown for that instead, right? So let's go to plays of the day, though. Again, guys, hit that like. We appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to check out all the great content we have here at Run Pure Sports. And I didn't mention it, but if you are looking to sign up here, use that code GIBLETS44. It gets you 44% off your first purchase. So, hey, listen, holidays are coming up. You're going to have some time off. You're going to want to play some fantasy sports. So get in there. You're going to love the community. While you got some time off, hang out in there. It's an absolute blast and tons of great, valuable information from not only just coordinators, also the members as well. DC, I'll go to you first, though. Who do you got? Who is your play of the day?
Oof, man, a lot of options. I'm going to go with Mr. Herb Jones. Perfect matchup against the Wizards. Fast-paced, no defense, missing Zion. I think he's going to have to play big minutes in this one, relatively cheap. I know a lot of people are going to go to the Pelicans. I will be as well. But Herb Jones at 5,500 feels like a really strong play to me. I'll go with Herb Jones as Mom's Basement play of the day.
All right, let me go over to you, AP. Who do you got? Who's your play of the day here?
Yeah, so my play of the day, I mean, I need Anthony Davis to sit. I'm working under that assumption. I don't care if LeBron plays, but I think Anthony Davis sits. If it does, it's going to be like the best matchup ever for Wemby. I think he nukes Victor Wembanyama, 8.8K on DraftKings, play of the day.
Cool. I got caught on mute from the final thing I was going to say on the show, but mine is it's definitely a different play, but I think the script can work its way out for a little Bobby Portis. He's just too cheap for the upside that he has, and he can get that nice, not blowout run, right, but that nice closeout run that he can get and can absolutely dominate in this matchup, even if they're winning the game, right? He can easily play a little bit of that blowout where they're up like 12 points, just absolutely destroy, and he can easily close in a good spot if it's a competitive game. So give me Bobby Portis as my play of the day. But that is going to wrap it up for us. Thanks a lot for joining us. Check out the Up the Lock show coming up next. It's on the premium side again. You got to use that code Giblets44 to check that out. You're going to be getting all the information from our guys. It'll be, I think today is, I think it's Big T and JSU. We're on today's Wednesday. No, K Fallick is not there because he's traveling. So we have on tap for you Rubio, JSU, and Holden. They'll be breaking everything down for you guys. So be sure to check that out over on the premium side. But for me, Mangone, DC, AP, we'll see you guys later.